Oh, well, you know what? I'm not really sure, Reverend Dalia, but Reverend Dalia is here today. I thought there was a piece for the script to introduce Reverend Dalia, but we are glad to have Reverend Dalia here today. We appreciate you being here. We can't wait to hear your wonderful talk as usual. The spiritual lessons from a bird. I lost my pamphlet, so I don't know what the heck I did with it. Thank you.
So I think everyone here has heard an introduction about me, maybe, maybe not. My name is Dalia, formerly Reverend Dr. Dalia Adams. I'm really glad to be here. This is such a wonderful community, and by that I mean not only the facility, but the energy in here is so love-filled that it just feels good to come. Okay, thank you. You read the daily word for some of us in the social hall, and what I'm remembering is the importance of appreciating this moment, the importance of appreciating myself and each and every one of you. And that goes very, very well with what I'm planning to talk about. So, let's see if this is working. Okay. So, who and what are our spiritual teachers, and who cares? You know, like, what's the big deal? In Eastern traditions and in some other traditions, probably some native traditions, the shaman, the guru, the teacher, the master is centrally important oftentimes for people's spiritual journey, right? You've heard that. And spiritual teachers are important also, I believe, in my spiritual journey. They're so central. And I believe that spiritual teachers can be central to all of our journeys. And when I think of who or what have been my spiritual teachers, for the what comes to mind is walks along a body of water when the sun is setting. And there's a sense and an awe of beauty and greatness, and in those moments there is no doubt that there is a power far greater than any challenge I might be facing, present in each and every moment, present in that moment. Or if I don't have a body of water and a sunset, how about the mountains? You know, or so many ways that the power and beauty of the divine shows up in those moments. When I stop to recognize it, when I stop to honor it, is a moment of spiritual teaching. And in some ways even more powerful are the spiritual lessons I've gotten from teachers, spiritual teachers in my life. And I've been in retreats and workshops where we've been asked to write down the spiritual teachers that have made a difference to my life. And my list is long, but always, always near the top is my father and my mother, but I want to talk about my father today, and then others. And from my father, I learned many, many things. He was a very loving, very brilliant man, very kind man. But what comes to mind as far as his spiritual teaching, he taught me that we each have within us something that allows us or brings us to a healing experience. My father was a doctor, and he did this very weird thing of doing house calls at a time when that was ancient history. No doctor did house calls, but he would go visit his elderly patients the ones that had difficulty getting a ride or had difficulty getting around, and he would, on Sundays, drive around and visit. You know, not everyone, but he'd rotate them. And probably, my guess is every month, visited his elderly patients. And he would sometimes bring me along, especially when we would go and visit Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and that's a made-up name. And he'd say to me, when I go and spend time with Mrs. Smith, I want you to sit and talk to Mr. Smith. Because that ability to talk and to connect and to be heard, so when you talk to them, you have to listen carefully to what Mr. Smith says, because those moments where you feel close to someone, when you're connected, and when someone's listening, those moments do more for healing than the medicines I bring. So I would, I'm like 6, 7 years old, maybe 8, and I just felt so important because I knew that by being with this person, by listening, by talking, I was helping their healing. This is way ahead of his time. I mean, doctors still today don't get that, some of them. And back then, almost none did. There was a little, and he would quote research to me as if, but he did, okay? So my father taught me the importance of love, the importance of our connection, and the power within each of us to heal. Big lesson. And only now, at this stage of my life, can I put those words to it. But that inner understanding has been there for me my entire life. Fast forward many years later, I was living in the Virgin Islands, and I was a teacher, and I was a teacher at 2 different schools, both of which had the reputation of taking in and teaching some of the worst of the worst. You've heard that phrase, right? And the kids that were hopeless, the ones that were never going to graduate, the ones that were never going to make it, the ones that had been expelled from every other school on the island. And in both schools, I experienced the lesson, but at the second school, there was a headmistress who told me, in the very beginning, I'm hiring you to teach biology and chemistry and sometimes math. I am not hiring you to fix these kids. I did not hire you to discipline them or change them. The moment you start doing that, you're fired. Your job is just to recognize that each and every child is good. At the very heart of their being, they're good, and they have everything they need within them to figure it out. You just teach biology and chemistry and sometimes math. So again, that same lesson, it wasn't physical healing, but be with them, see the good in them, recognize the power they have within them, love them, and teach biology. At that school we had 100%, unless someone moved off island and someone's family moved away, we had 100% graduation rate. We taught from a standard curriculum. There were no passes, no easy ways of, working around the system. Most of our kids went on to college. We had several that got scholarships to places like Harvard. So that whole thing was a huge learning experience, but it went right along with what my father taught me, right? And then fast forward some more years, and I'm in graduate school in Ohio, a 7-year graduate program to learn psychology. And one of the things that drew me to that school and that program was a professor named Fred. And Fred was one of the greatest spiritual teachers I ever had. I don't even know if he had any religion. He never talked, that type of spirituality. But he was one of the clinical professors, that means there were 4 of them, that taught us how to be a therapist, how to help heal people. And every single clinical class that he taught, he began with the same words. And those words were, the moment you are trying to fix someone, know that you're doing something wrong. And he taught us to listen, to see that within each and every person there was that power to heal. It wasn't our job to heal them, it was our job to be with them, to acknowledge that which was great and good within them, to listen in a way that they knew that we really got what their experience was, and we could hold that challenge right there with knowing they had that power within them to heal all that needed to be healed. Again, isn't there a theme in these lessons? And I've had many, many lessons like that. So years later, when I graduated from this program, I ended up in Florida, brand new, knew no one, and landed by pure serendipity, by pure chance, at a church that was called First Unity in St. Petersburg, Florida. And it was amazing. And this minister kept teaching us to see the Christ in each other and see the Christ within ourselves. And what that meant is he was teaching me, when I looked at myself, to see the Christ and to know that there is a power within me, a spirit within me, a goodness within me far beyond anything I could have imagined. And then when I look at other people in my life, I see the Christ in them, even when they're doing things that really made me angry, to somehow find the ability to know that somewhere in there was the Christ waiting to shine. And I was getting good at it. I repeated affirmations. You had some up on the screen. When we bless the children, what was the wording?
We bless you, we love you, we appreciate you. Just the way you are.
Okay, we love you, we bless you, we appreciate you just the way you are. There's that lesson again, right? And there was another point in the, you have it in every Sunday. Mm-hmm. In the principles, yeah. And by the way, the principles were first written, that first minister that I had in Florida, his wife was also a Unity minister, and she taught classes for us, but she wasn't employed as a minister at that church. And he was great, and she was even greater. Her name was Catherine, and she wrote those principles. It was a homework assignment when she was in seminary. Her teacher was Connie Fillmore, and that was during a time when Unity was adamant about not giving people credit for what they wrote. So Connie Fillmore put it out there as her teacher, and Connie Fillmore has gotten credit for it ever since. But so think of Catherine when you read those principles. Boy, am I getting diverted today. Sorry. So I'm in Unity. My son's going off to college. Before the year before I moved down there, when I was graduating, I got divorced. I sold everything in the house we were living in. It had been my parents' home, and I knew that I probably wouldn't be coming back. And my son was going off to college. I mean, talk about releasing everything. And so it was a few weeks before school started, and we were taking a ride along the coast of Florida. We were sightseeing. We were brand new there. And he wanted to stop in a pet store. So we did. And there was this bird in the pet store. But she was still a baby, so her feathers were a little frazzled and goofy. And he fell in love with her. And he says to me, "Mom, can I have her?" And I pull out my credit card. I mean, talk about denial. This was my way of pretending he wasn't leaving home in 2 weeks. Because essentially, who was I buying the bird for? And did I want a bird? No. Did I know anything about these birds? No. Did I want to buy a cage in addition? And the cage was like $500. The bird was well over $1,000. I had no money. I had credit. I had a lot of credit. So I bring home Kona. And then I start reading about these birds. And one of the big things is amateurs should never get one of these birds. These are one of the most difficult birds to raise and to own and blah, 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 blah. But what I learned from reading and what I learned from Kona over the years is she was really smart. Okay, so what the literature said is their intelligence ranks highest of non-human species, including apes and whales, so they're smarter. Research has shown that typically the average macaw has the reasoning ability of a 3 or 4-year-old child. And I think Kona was a genius for a macaw because her ability was far beyond that. And I need to tell you some stories about her, or you won't believe that she was really teaching me something. For example, she liked to dance, and one time, Christmas time, she was up on her perch, and I had the Nutcracker Suite playing. Really beautiful music, and there were, back then it was cassettes, I think. Anyway, and it's playing, and really upbeat, beautiful dance music, and this bird is up on her perch, and she's dancing, she's stretching her wings, and her back leg is going in sync, and her head is up, and she's swaying. And 2 or 3 cuts had played like this, and she was dancing, and this cut ended, there was a pause, and the next music that came on was the battle scene. And she started dancing, and she stopped, and she was quiet, and then she yelled, "Stop it! I said, stop it! Stop it now! Stop it!" So I got up, I changed the cassette back to, and she went back to dancing. Okay. In the early mornings, at night, people cover birds' cages because they feel safer in the dark when they're hidden. And in the morning, when she heard me walking, I could hear her, because I'm in the other room. Her cage was in my office. I'd hear her, "Want to come out? I want to come out." And if I'm not there quickly, I mean, this bird had no patience. Waiting was not part of her skill set. "I want to come out. I want to come out." And if I'm not there quickly, pretty soon her wings are stretched, she's plastered against the cage screaming on top of her lungs. Have you ever heard these birds scream? Oh my gosh. "Want to come out?" Or she loved my dog Misty, and Misty totally ignored her. As far as Misty was concerned, she didn't exist. But every time I take Misty for a walk and we'd come in, Kona would say, "Hi, Misty. Hello, Misty. Misty would walk right past her. Misty, say hello. Misty, please say hello. I mean, so I'm used to this bird. There were times when she just parroted words, but mostly she said what was going on for her. So, meanwhile, in the background, my son drops out of graduate school, gives back a scholarship and decides he wants to be an artist. And I turn into a screaming Mimi, but finally realized that even if he changed his mind, they're not going to give him back his scholarship. They're not going to let him back in school. And so we were reconciling, and what he did, one of his very first paintings was a portrait of Kona, and he brought it from college, weekend visit. It was wrapped in brown paper, and Kona had the perch that she's actually sitting on in the portrait, and she was on the perch, kind of like right here, so I could see her in my peripheral vision, and she was always curious about everything, so she's watching me unwrap whatever this was, and she sees this portrait, and instantly, I have to back up so I don't knock it, she saw it, and I watched her wings go like this. She's bent way down. Oh, wow! Hello, Kona! I could feel it in my body, from my heart down to my gut, and in that instant, I knew that I would never, at that point, I would not be able to do what she just did. If I saw myself in the mirror, or if I saw a portrait of myself, or a photograph, that I did not have the ability from the bottom of my heart, from my gut, with my whole being, to say, oh, wow, hello, Dalia. Now I could do my unity affirmations. I'm a child of God, beautiful in every way, and repeat it enough, you know, I was believing it. My sense of who I was improving with this goofy little church that I found, right, and the teachings. But could I ever, with my whole being, yell with total awe of my beauty and my goodness? I knew in that moment that this was my spiritual path. That before my time on this world came to its conclusion, I wanted to come at least close to being able to do what Kona just did. And then if I could look at you and the people that I meet and be able to I mean, if I did that all the time to people, I'd get locked up, but internally go, oh, wow, hello, you know, whatever that person's name is. If I could do that, that would be bigger than seminary. That would be bigger than a PhD in psychology. That would be bigger than any retreat or, you know, spiritual journey I might take, than walking the Camino or going to Lourdes, or, you know, it would be, or I guess it's Peru these days. To this day, when I think of that moment, I still feel it in my body, and my body says, yes, you got it. You got what this lesson was about. And right alongside, I'm going to this Unity Church that's teaching me how to recognize the power, the presence, the love, the Christ that's within me. And it's giving me an intellectual understanding. It's giving me a practice to make that stronger. But how do I become the spiritual giant that Kona was in that moment? And what I've come to learn is that it's a process of releasing, of letting go, in order, see, that's the right background for it too, right? In order to be able to say, oh wow, in that way. In order to be able to look at a mirror and say, oh wow, Dalia. When you guys looked in the mirror this morning, how many of you said, oh wow? Okay. That's your homework assignment for the rest of your life, right? And what unity teaches us to do is to look in that mirror and say those affirmations. I am amazing, I am beautiful, I am good, perfect in every way, right? And that helps, that reinforces that truth. But the big thing is letting go of the stuff. Because it's that stuff, the old wounds, the injuries, the fears that block that. That oh wow is in each and every one of us. But it's blocked with the moments that we didn't know. It's blocked with the moments that we were afraid, or terrified, or furious, or on and on and on. Kona could have responded with, my feathers don't look right in that. I mean, she would have like, eek, the feathers or something. She could have said, yeah, but such a scratchy voice. Who would want to ever listen to her? Because it's true, her voice is scratchy. Or I know that bird, she's so messy. All true, right? All true. With the scratchy voice and the messiness, who could ever love her? How could I ever love her? And we do things to ourselves, like not tall enough. My hair doesn't behave. My skin is the wrong complexion. Look at that, I have bags under my eyes. On and on. Or why did I say that to so-and-so? Have you ever replayed a conversation 1,000 times? Or an imagined conversation, one that hasn't even happened, and you're replaying it in your head? All that stuff lodges in our body, in our spirit. And when that, oh wow, could potentially come out, that stuff holds it down. That stuff keeps it there. So what do? We have a releasing practice, forgiveness practice. There are forgiveness meditations online, on podcasts. There are forgiveness meditations that you can find the scripts online. Jack Kornfield, a Buddhist teacher, does beautiful, beautiful forgiveness meditations. So part of a daily or weekly practice to forgive. Forgive ourselves, forgive other people. Forgive that politician you absolutely do not agree with ever. Those are hard ones, right? And then there's releasing practices, sometimes massage, yoga, tai chi, the way we release these things from our bodies. Reading, there are amazing spiritual teachers that have written books. Hugs. When someone you have very warm feelings for hugs you and holds you as if you are good and amazing. Those are all practices of releasing. We don't have to learn how to say, oh wow. All we need to do is release the blocks. Course in Miracles, people have different reactions to it, but its key teaching is that the most important thing is love. And the entire purpose of the Course is not to try to teach love, because that's who and what we are. The entire purpose of the Course is to help us to remove the blocks to the awareness of love's presence, right? Imagine a world where lots and lots of people, or maybe most people, could do this, could live with that, oh wow, could have released enough of those blocks to allow that to rise up automatically within us. Imagine a world in which many people, or even most of us, would wake up in the morning, look at the mirror and say, oh wow. And then when they went about their day, the people they saw, all that they could think was, oh wow, oh wow. So those are my, there were other lessons from Kona, but that's the big one. And I think if I had to name the lesson, the spiritual lesson that has had the biggest impact on me, it would be that one. And it's supported by what other spiritual teachers have taught me. When I was a little Catholic girl at our parish, there were two priests. One was Father Ivan and the other was Father Peter. Father Ivan talked a lot, but he talked about love and he laughed a lot. And there was a loving atmosphere that went with him. I don't remember a single word that Father Peter ever said, but there was a moment when I was maybe 7, 8 years old, and I was terrified. I don't even remember exactly what was going on. And I didn't even see where he came from, but Father Peter came up to me and he hugged me. And my fear went away. Again, the lesson is one of love and seeing that good in ourselves and in those around us. So these are spiritual teachers that I really like. Hafiz is a Sufi teacher. And he wrote, I wish I could show you when you are lonely or in darkness, the astonishing light of your own being. He was trying to teach what Kona taught, and he's coming close, but not quite right. Or Kabir, he was, I believe, from India, and I couldn't find a picture of his to use. And Kabir's quote is much longer, so I've condensed it. But Kabir wrote, inside this clay jug, inside this body, there are canyons and mountains. All 7 oceans are inside, and millions of stars. Friend, listen, I will tell you the truth. God, whom I love, is inside. Now, isn't that something to say, oh wow, about? All that God is, all of God's creation, is that which is within us because God is within us. God is everywhere present. No exceptions. God, whom I love, is inside. Oh wow. Oh wow. And then, of course, Rumi. You are not a drop in the ocean. You are the entire ocean in a drop. Oh, wow. And so it is, and I thank you very much. So let's take this now into our meditation. So I invite you, to sit comfortably, releasing any tension that might be lingering. Allowing your breath to find its own easy and natural rhythm. Honoring the breath. Softly saying, "Oh wow, how amazing this breath is. This breath of God that is breathing me right now." And gently notice how your breath feels. Notice how it feels as it moves in and out. You may even notice how each breath takes you a little deeper. Deeper into that sacred space within you. That sacred space in which you know, where you discover, where you experience the presence that is God. And as you allow that experience of the God of your being to fill you, you can silently say, "Oh wow," recognizing the magnificence, the power, the amazing presence that is at the very heart of your being. The presence that is God. Oh, wow. And Meister Eckhart said, "The eye with which I see God is the same eye through which God sees me." And in that presence, allow yourself to feel God's gaze resting on you. And hear God say, "Oh wow. Oh wow." And so for a little while, in the silence, rest in the very truth of who you are. And so I will tell you the truth. The God whom I love, the God that you love, is inside. And your whole being fills with, "Oh wow." And so bringing that with you, I invite you to gently and easily bring your attention back to this room. back to this place, back to this moment. When you're ready, go ahead and open your eyes. And then I invite you to look around and see each and every face in this room and do the only thing that makes sense. Say, oh, wow. And know that when people are looking at you, they're saying, oh, wow. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. And so it is. Oops.